The sun was just beginning to rise over Lagos, casting a warm, golden hue over the streets. The bustling city, alive with the sound of traffic, chatter, and the hum of 1,000 different lives, held a secret beauty in the quiet moments of dawn. Among the early risers was Mary, a young woman whose life had been a constant battle against the odds. Her shoes were worn, her handbag frayed, but her heart was full of hope. Today, she was on her way to an interview that could change everything. She entered the grand office building, the cold, sterile environment starkly contrasting the warmth and chaos of the streets she knew so well. The smell of polished floors and fresh paint made her feel small, like an intruder in a world that was not meant for people like her. But today, she had made it. Today, she had a chance. Mary had always dreamed of a better life. She had grown up in a small room with her mother, who worked endlessly at the market, trying to keep food on the table. There was never enough. The walls of their home were cracked, the roof leaked when it rained, and every day felt like a struggle. But her mother had always whispered words of hope to her. One day, you will leave this life behind. Those words had kept Mary going, even in her darkest moments. As Mary made her way to the interview room, she noticed an elderly woman sitting quietly by the door, wiping down the glass panels. She was a cleaner, her clothes faded from years of hard work, her face lined with age and fatigue. Despite this, there was something dignified about the way she worked. She moved with a quiet grace, as if the office building were her domain. Mary couldn't help but watch her for a moment, intrigued by the peacefulness in her movements. The interview was everything she had hoped for. The questions were challenging, but Mary answered with confidence, drawing on the strength and resilience she had learned from years of hardship. But as the interview came to an end, something unexpected happened. The receptionist called out her name, and she turned to leave, only to find the elderly woman standing behind her, holding a bottle of water in one hand and a faint smile on her lips. "Are you okay?" the woman asked, her voice soft but warm. Mary hesitated for a moment, unsure how to respond. But then she realized that the woman had noticed the anxiety in her eyes, the uncertainty, the fear. With a quiet nod, Mary accepted the water, her hands trembling slightly as she took it from her. "Thank you," she said, feeling a sense of connection she hadn't expected. As she walked out of the building, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted inside her. That small moment of kindness, from someone who had every reason to be bitter, had touched her more than the interview itself. It reminded her of her mother's words, "One day, Mary, you will leave this life behind." And perhaps, just perhaps, today was the first step. Over the next few weeks, Mary found herself drawn to the old cleaner, who she learned was named Agnes. Every day after her shift, Mary would find a moment to sit with Agnes, learning about her life and the quiet dignity with which she had faced years of struggle. Agnes had lived through hardships too. She had raised children alone, worked multiple jobs to make ends meet, and still found time to care for others. But it was her sense of grace that left the most lasting impression on Mary. Agnes didn't complain about her situation. She didn't harbor resentment or bitterness. She had learned to accept life as it was, and in that acceptance, there was power. Meanwhile, Mary's career began to take shape. She received the job offer she had worked so hard for. But there was a catch: Toby. He was a charming and charismatic man, someone Mary had quickly grown close to. He was the one who had put in a good word for her, arranged the interview, and made sure she had the opportunity. But the more Mary got to know Toby, the more she began to notice something unsettling. He was always looking for ways to elevate himself, even at the expense of others. He treated Mary with kindness, but there was an undercurrent of condescension in his actions. Despite this, Mary felt conflicted. She wanted to believe in Toby, in the connection they shared. But deep down, she knew something wasn't right. It wasn't until one fateful afternoon that the truth came crashing down. Mary had been celebrating the job offer in the company lounge when she overheard a conversation between the receptionist and another colleague. They were laughing about the poor girl who had somehow managed to land an interview, unaware that she had overheard everything. The truth was out. Toby had only helped her as a token. She wasn't his equal. She was a project, a way to show the higher-ups that he was charitable, that he could help someone from the streets. Her heart shattered in that moment. The betrayal cut deep, and her hands trembled as she tried to hold back the tears. She had trusted Toby. She had thought he saw her for who she was, someone with potential, someone worthy of respect. But instead, she had been nothing more than a charity case. A pawn in his game. Mary couldn't stay in the office any longer. She needed to get out, to breathe. She found herself alone in the quiet corner of the building, the weight of the betrayal sinking in. For a moment, the world felt too heavy. But then she remembered Agnes, the quiet woman who had shown her what real strength looked like. Agnes had faced her own struggles with dignity and grace, never allowing the world to break her. And in that moment, Mary realized that she wasn't going to let Toby or anyone else break her either. With newfound determination, Mary began to quietly plan her next steps. She wasn't going to fight Toby or the system in the way they expected. She would use her intelligence, her skills, and her strength to rise on her own. She started gathering information, learning about the company's operations, its weaknesses, and its flaws. She worked with her mentor, Agnes, and began making strategic moves, subtle but powerful steps that would position her to take control of her own destiny. And one day, in front of the boardroom, it all came to fruition. Mary walked in, calm and composed, carrying with her the evidence she had gathered. She exposed the corruption, the exploitation, and the lies. She showed the world that she was more than just a poor girl from the streets of Lagos. She was someone who had earned her place, someone who had the strength to rise, no matter what. The room fell silent as Toby's mask of charm slipped away, revealing the truth. And with that, Mary's quiet victory was realized. She had won, not because she had fought back in anger, but because she had stayed true to herself. She had risen above the betrayal and proven that her worth was not defined by anyone else. Months passed, and Mary continued to climb the ranks, building relationships with people who saw her as an equal. She never forgot the lessons Agnes had taught her, about dignity, grace, and the quiet strength that comes from within. And as for Toby, he was left to face the consequences of his actions, stripped of his power and his pride. But Mary had something far more valuable than power or status. She had peace. She had found a place where she could be herself, where she could grow, and where she could make a difference. And in the quiet corners of Lagos, as the city continued to hum with life, Mary knew that she had finally left behind the life she once knew. And in that peace, there was hope for the future. This version of the story takes Mary from an underdog to a woman who rises above betrayal, finds strength in herself, and achieves victory through quiet moral courage. It balances real emotional struggles with triumph, ensuring that the narrative feels grounded, relatable, and inspiring, perfect for a viral YouTube story.